I told myself, if I don't write 10 books, I want to write this one book. And the title just went through everything, the lifestyle that I was living.
Alrighty then, hello and welcome to this edition of Love Speaks. I am your host, LaKisha, and this is where we talk about informational topics that are impacting our South Florida area, but bringing in those that love what they're doing, who are excellent in their craft. And so my co-host and I, Francois, thought that this will be a great virtual podcast to bring to you. And today we have a phenomenal guest. We have Eric, who is an author. He's written multiple books, but I do want to just expound on two of them. One of his books is The Dark Side of South Beach. I actually had the privilege of attending his book signing, and it was a phenomenal event. And we'll let him talk about that, but he also authored another book, and that book is titled We Smile When We Eat. And so I want to welcome my guest today. He's not only an author, but he also has a clothing line. He also have dabbled into film and production. So he's doing great things, very passionate about what he does. And so it is with great pleasure that I introduce to you our guest today, Eric, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today on Love Speaks, Eric.
Thank you so much, LaKisha. I appreciate you and Francois for the opportunity of having me on Love Speaks, and it's a blessing.
Thank you so much, Eric, for joining us today. Now, I know there is so much that we could talk about. There is so much we could talk about, but we know our time is short. So we want to first start by you introducing yourself to the audience. Let us know. Tell us about Eric.
Eric, in a nutshell, is an entrepreneur, dogmatic about everything I do. You know, whatever I set my mind to, I'm trying to accomplish goals at all times. So I'm an author, I'm an actor, I'm a filmmaker, I'm also a clothing designer.
Awesome. That's good to
hear.
And
I mean, also, you know, I'm a husband, I'm a family man, I'm a family-oriented person. So my family means most to me.
All right, so let's get into these books. Let's get into the author, Eric. Let's talk about it. How did you start writing? What prompted these books? The dark side, not just South Beach, but you talked about the dark side of South Beach, and just kind of perusing through the book a little. Our team discovered the style of writing that was demonstrated in the book, which is very phenomenal because it kind of mirrored the style of Zora Neale Hurston, and that somewhat she wrote in regards to, that related to black readers.
Okay.
And so her writing was very descriptive in the way that she wrote to us as black people. And so our producers came back and said, I love this book because the style mirrors Zora Neale Hurston. And I was like, wow, that's phenomenal. So I make sure I bring that to Eric, that you did a great thing when you wrote this book, The Dark Side of South Beach. But what prompted this book?
LaKisha, you just don't even know. That question right there, I love when it get asked to me. Because me writing, just the gift of it it comes definitely from the gift of God. I started writing when I was in federal prison, and I told myself, if I don't write 10 books, I want to write this one book. And the title just went through everything, the lifestyle that I was living. And the key to it also was basically, I noticed everyone, they always, when they come on South Beach, they always want to, they want to go on Miami Beach, quote unquote. So I was like, it's a dark side to South Beach. I always try to want to bring the people, the readers on the opposite end of Miami. And I called it the dark side of South Beach, just to shed light on the inner city, like what's not being spoken about. It's not always glitz and glamour in Miami. Although South Beach might be the glitz and glamour, but we really living in reality on the other side of the bridge.
That's good, and I'm glad to hear that inspiration, because when I read the title of it, The Dark Side of South Beach, and I actually read the book itself, first couple of pages as I got into it, I was like, wow, this here really talk about the hood, and even though it was in third party, but I was still yet able to relate because I, like yourself, grew up and was raised in somewhat of what we would call the hood, and having certain experiences and things that we might have seen from that place of, our upbringing, which were not pleasant, that did not necessarily mirror Miami Beach, like you said. But just talking about your writing and the writing style, what particular moment of your experience inspired you to become a writer? I know you mentioned while you were in federal prison, but what moment there that inspired you to write, not only about the dark side about South Beach, but what actually birthed that desire to write? Because you didn't only write that one book, but you also authored We Smile When We Eat. What is that about?
We Smile When We Eat is a children's book. And it goes back to what I was saying. I said, I write different genres. So I said, let me write this children's book just to give some type of motivation, inspiration to the youth. And just to acknowledge it, something with more graphic detail, colorful, something they can relate to, but it has substance to it. So there's going to get something. Also, at the end of the book, I have Q&As for the parents, just asking their kids. So it's just definitely something that has substance to it. And my style of writing, I treat my style of writing like a southpaw boxer. And it's the long format of the style, because most writers, they might write on a laptop and just edit and publish. Me, I'm old school with it. So I have to write in a pencil, get a notepad and pen first. I'm going to write it down, and then I'm going to type it out, and then I'm going to get it edited and published, because my style of writing is different. It's a long process, but that's how I started. I'm self-taught.
Which is good to hear, because even as you're talking about your books, I want to kind of elaborate on the feeling you felt as an author. Having not one book, but two books, and working on your third and your fourth book, how does that make you feel when you look and you see, okay, look, I've accomplished this. I made this happen. Being self-taught, how did that make you feel, knowing that you have accomplished this goal that you were seeking to obtain?
It's a wonderful feeling. I mean, I love it because I'm a ninth grade dropout. I dropped out of school in the ninth grade. So even when people ask me, I smile sometimes. They be like, what school you went to learn to write, or what? They always asking like, how did you become who you are? But they always think, not knocking school or anything like that. I'm just saying I'm self-taught. It's a gift of God. I just told them everything I do is a gift of God. And I'm appreciative of it. But I always just tell people, if you want to do something, you got that desire. Just keep going. You chase your dreams. Yes. And so it just desire to keep going, and I just smile because everything is just like, it's blossoming, because I have the visions already in my mind. So everything is just playing out. It just takes time, but as I keep on chipping at that tree, everything just starts to play out.
In regards to your statement of, just being self-taught and, kind of not going beyond as far as the ninth grade, but not only are you an author, but you are professionally trained as well in HVAC, and you're doing so much other wonderful things with your life, even having a rough start, to this thing called adulthood. You've accomplished so much. So what words can you give someone who might have been in your shoes, or may be in your shoes, that may be looking at their life that says, okay, I can't do this because I didn't get this education, and I can't do this because no one, trained me. What words of advice could you give to them as an author and as a professionally trained HVAC and one I look at who have conquered many, many, many barriers in life that would normally hold someone else back? You've done so many great things with your life. What words of advice would you give to them?
My key word that I'm firm on is reinventing yourself. That's something I always tell people. You able to reinvent yourself once you have that reinventing mindset. So once you're able to just turn that off, you're able to accomplish anything in life. So just knowing that you don't have to give up. Don't give up on yourself. You always got an opportunity. And basically, when you going back to the HVAC and education wise, that was also, I accomplished all those in federal prison also. I obtained my GED. They had a trade school attached to the federal prison. It's not like that in state prisons. What they tell me, what I heard, because I've never been to state prison, nor am I going. So, right. Just in being in the federal system, you have technical schools that you're able to get trades, whether it might be dental assistants, culinary arts, so on and so forth. learned to be a barber, and just happened to facility I was at, I was able to get my electrical construction and technology degree and also my HVAC degree. And I said I want to use this getting out, knowing that I have something firm I can stand on. I have a job that's an in-demand trade that I'm able to take care of my family, even though I have other endeavors that I'm doing for us being an author and a writer and filmmaker and so on and so forth. But I want to be able to take care of my family with my job 9 to 5 until I get to where I'm going.
That's so good to hear. I love when you give your personal testimony, and every time I hear that testimony, it just excites me, makes my heart rejoice, because not many people you hear who goes to prison comes out in the position that you came out, where you got your GED. Not only did you get your GED, but you took advantage of a trade, and now you are not only reinvented yourself, but you've established yourself as where you are able to continue life without having to go back to prison because you had to find means or ways to hustle because you couldn't get a job to,
Amen.
take care of what you need to take care of, not only for yourself, but for your family. So it's always great when I hear that testimony, because I know so many people who have gone to prison and they feel like all hope is gone, that they can't recover from that. But it's so good to hear that you can overcome, you can recover. Thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing and transparent with sharing that testimony. What can you say to someone who's watching that says, okay, Eric is talking, he got not only been in prison, but he got 3 books and he's continually doing great things. What can you say to someone who else wants to be an author? What would you say to them?
What I always tell, because I get that question asked a lot also, I always tell a person, I say, you can go to your nearest local store, grab a pen and paper, and just start writing. As you fill in the blanks, you can write chapter 1, just fill in 2 lines, go on to chapter 2, because you already have what you want to write in your mind. People might think the whole concept of writing is hard, but it's actually not. Just jot down your notes and you'll go back and fill in the blanks. I'm just using the format I use, so it's just, you have to have that initiative. Just get it going. Don't worry about how long it's going to take, or just start. Just start the day. That's the main thing. The whole key to it is just to start. Once you start, you'll have a complete project.
Okay. And I know you talked about being self-taught, but I know you have moved from being self-taught, tap into other resources. What resources can someone utilize who are considering becoming an author that also makes it? I'm like Eric, I'm self-taught. I've been through the educational system. I've dropped out of school. What tools or resources that you use that maybe you can leave to the guests that someone's watching that they can also utilize to help them as well as they pursue becoming an author or just becoming a better individual, reinventing themselves? What resources can they use?
You have to read. I'm going to be honest. You have to read, because the world we live in is an ever-evolving world. So you have to read. So you could Google Author 101, I'm just giving a name. Something, just feed some type of literature that'll help you. And also you take advantage of YouTube, and we call it YouTube University. Google, just pay attention to detail and just start. You have to read. You have to search and read and just add it to your building blocks. Just add it to your repertoire. I'm old school. I call it your Rolodex.
Okay.
So just add it, and you'll just seek information, informative information.
That is so important, because when we're talking about resources, those resources, I believe, are at our hands. Everyone I see walk around with a phone in their hand, and on that device, there are so many ways you can Google anything today. I tell anybody that Google, that search engine, you could put anything and something's going to pop up, and you'll be able to find the resources that you need to be able to help you in whatever area you're trying to advance in. Now, we talked about Eric as an author. Now, I want to talk about Eric as a actor and a film directing. What prompted you to get involved in acting and film directing?
Not leaving no leaf unturned.
That's it.
That was my main goal. I said, I'm gonna try it out. Why not? Yeah. It's something I thought about. I said, if I'm gonna be writing scripts for films, I said, why not put myself in a place? I learned. I'm Tyler Perry, 50 Cent, Ice Cube. I watch these individuals, knowing their stories, where they came from, and I see it being done. So I'm like, why not me? And so, like I say, just going forward at it. Just also going back, just reading and watching YouTube, videos on acting, little tutorials and stuff like that nature, and just reenacting. I might be in, my wife don't know sometimes, I might be in the bathroom in the mirror because you want to see how your face look on screen. So I'm talking to myself, reciting old movies that I love, and just trying to see it, just practicing, just keep practicing.
Yeah.
But I always tell people, not to cut you off, I always tell people that I work with, I say, if I ain't doing a good job, now just tell me, but I'm going to keep going.
Are there any past or current projects you were working on that just kind of, that we may know that we need to keep an eye out for?
Actually, I'm just completing Perfectly Imperfect already. I did the short film already, what was nominated in the Fort Lauderdale Film Festival, but I'm getting ready to wrap that up. And I have another sports drama that I'm tackling, high school football. We big on sports down here, so I got a short film coming out geared towards high school football.
All righty then. We'll be looking forward to those projects as they come out. And so have your writing influenced your acting at all? Have the Dark Side of South Beach, has that influenced, Eric, the actor?
Yes, it did. It did. It has. Because the characters in the book, people always ask me, so who am I? They ask me, they be like, which one are you in the book? I'm all the characters.
Okay.
So I wrote it from I call it the eye of the sky. My writing, just because I'm shedding light on all the characters, but all the characters are a piece of me.
Okay. So as they read the book, just know that every single character there is talking about the life of Eric.
A piece
of Eric.
A piece.
Not all of it,
Not
but
all.
A piece of Eric.
A piece.
All right, that's good to know. So if you're looking and you want to get that book, make sure you look and check out for the Dark Side of South Beach, which you can get from Amazon, correct?
Absolutely. All my books can be found on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. Anywhere you search for your reading literature, all my books will be found online, everywhere.
So what's the next project you're working on? And before we get to the next project, I want to ask, who motivated you? Who motivated you? I know you said you wrote from when you were in prison, but is there anyone in particular that motivated you and inspires you to write and to act?
Not only do I motivate myself, but also my wife. We go off, my family, and also my cousin Ball Greasy. We talk in the middle of the night, just going over ideas and stuff. And iron sharpens iron. So different stuff we share, ideas and so on and so forth. And he behind what he's been doing for over 25 years, and we just share ideas, go back and forth, and that helps me out a lot.
So it's good to hear in regards to the motivation that you have. Also, I want to ask, what made you come up with the clothing line? So let's tap into that. With so many aspects of Eric we want to touch on today, the author, the actor, but also the clothing designer. What made you come up with a clothing line? And I know we have this cliche that, if you're a rapper, you're going to have a clothing line, so I guess if you're an author, you have a clothing line. But what inspired Eric to come out with the clothing line?
I'm a fashionable person. I love to be fly, so I love fashion. So I said, let me dabble into it. Let me see if I could share some of my style to the world. And just loving and also just taking on the task, being able to create. I love to create. So I say, okay, let me just try the clothing line. And I need to go full force on it. I'll be kind of 50-50 with it. But I love it. Just tapping into fashion, knowing that it's $1 billion industry. That's number one. So I said, why not?
And are you creating from your own personal style and artistic vision? Or you're getting some kind of, ideas from, it's a big fashion industry. That's what we are. Fashion, like you said, is here, and I don't think it's ever going anywhere. It's forever evolving. And I think sometimes they just bring back a lot of our old fashioned, recycle it, and then pour it out there again. My mom always said when growing up, we wore that when I was your age. Exactly. And now they bring it back and they just make it a fashion statement again. And it just take one person that goes viral. But are you using your own artistic, creative vision for these fashion designs? And, how much sooner can we see these designs either in the stores or where can we purchase to support Eric?
I have a website. I'm just saying clothing. So my clothing line is online, but observation. I observe what's going on in the markets and what people are wearing. Just observation and just say, let me try a twist and come up with different designs this way. But just observation.
All right. righty then. That's good to hear. So we're talking about all your different projects that you have, and I am excited to see them as they continuously evolve. What upcoming projects are you excited about?
Film. I'm dogmatic about the film, and just also executing my books, because although I have about 3 books published, I'm always writing something, jotting down something. So in all actuality, I got like 10 books ready. I just had to complete them.
How do you balance all of the creativity and the endeavors all at once? Like, that's a lot. You got your clothing line, you have your books, your author, you have, the producing, you have the acting, film. And so how do you balance all of this all at once?
Like eating food, just, some days you might want to eat fruits today, some days you might want to eat salad. Because you can't try to do everything at one time. You got to just pace yourself. Pace yourself saying, okay, this week I'm going to finish up this book, or this week let me start editing the screenplay, and then the next week so on and so forth. Let me tap in, let me see if I can recreate some designs with the clothing line. So just pacing yourself.
Okay. And so what advice would you give to newcomers? I mean, I'm pretty sure in all of this, that you've been tapping into, rather if it's the clothing line as an author, what pitfalls, how would you encourage someone, or how did you encourage yourself in the midst of those pitfalls? And the same, how would you encourage someone else who may be inspiring to become an author? Because I know it wasn't all, like you say, the glitz and the glam, that there are pitfalls in everything that we, kind of start out in. There's going to be some opposition, some trials. How did you overcome those pitfalls? And what do you say to someone who may experience the same pitfalls?
LaKisha, I'm glad you said that, because pitfalls as an author, they call it writer's block. Writer's block, the first time someone said that to me, I was like, what's writer's block? Writer's block is when at a point in time, you're not going to be able to write nothing for a week, 3 months, 6 months. Like, basically you won't be able to write the word "the," and it's going to happen. But when that happens, just push through it, because you're not going to want to be creative all the time. So whenever you have that desire where you are, go at it, because you're going to have sometimes you might stop. Your vision might get blurry. So just keep going, because you're going to have, don't let writer's block scare you. Just keep pushing through it.
All right. And how important is networking in your field? I mean, you got to have some connections, and you have to network when you're talking about, I guess, not just being an author, but mainly in acting and film producing. Well, how important is the networking? And have you found some solid networks that you have attached yourself with to help keep you motivated and to help you on this journey?
That's another good question. I'm glad you asked that. Networking in the industry is big. But you got to have that spirit of discernment in all areas of life in general. But even in the entertainment industry, you better have it.
And so, because I guess, and I say that because it's so important, because in that industry, we have seen, if not in various settings, where people were taken advantage of.
Exactly.
Because either they did not discern, did not understand the relationship, and some people are vulnerable and find themselves compromised in places and with people that were not really wholesome or valuable for where their journey was taking them. And so that's why I just wanted to ask, from your perspective, how important is networking, not only just from the extent of collaboration, where, okay, I can get a job done from you, you can get a job done for me, but what does it say for networking in regards to the inspirational side of your business, the inspirational side of an author, someone who you can be able to talk to?
Yes.
Someone who inspires you as a writer. Who is that for you? I know you mentioned your wife, and you mentioned your family, and you mentioned your cousin, who you kind of, sharpen an iron with. But are there anyone else in your life, like, I guess, just outside forces? And, I'm pretty sure that bridge that you've developed over the years that have brought you from one point of your life to the next point. Who are those people? Who's those people in your village that help bridge you to that next level of your journey?
Friends, what I consider them my brothers. They're also tapped into what they do. So, we share ideas, and we motivate each other. So, it's just having that, like you say, the village, having the right people around you that you could bounce off ideas, and just always keep holding yourself accountable also too.
And that's what I wanted to hear, because I think a lot of times we hear the yeses. We want to hear the yes, and always just wanting to hear over and over those who are going to agree with our ideas and to say, yes, that's a good thing, do this, do that. But it's good when we have those who are able to check us and say, no, I don't think that's a good idea. No, I don't think that's, not yet. And it's okay for us to hear that, because it's constructive criticism.
Exactly.
Not all criticism is bad criticism, because a lot of times we hear a lot of people, I hear in conversations where people are saying, oh, I don't need nobody, I can do this thing by myself.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to hear from you in those areas in your creativity and how you're working, how important it is to have that and to have that connection. And I'm glad you talked about your homeboys and your friends, because those are the things that help us grow and develop the connections that we have. And I often say that we are just as strong as the connections or whoever we are connected to. What words do you want to leave for our viewers today? As you're talking about Eric, the author, you're talking about Eric, the fashion designer, talking about Eric, the film producer, and the actor. What words do you want to leave for our guests?
Prayer is essential. That you got to have a foundation. I'm gonna be honest. You got to having that foundation, having a relationship with God, and just and everything. It ain't gonna be easy all the time. It ain't gonna be easy. It's gonna have your ups and downs. But just having that prayer in your lifestyle, you're able to attain anything in life.
I hear this a lot. I keep hearing the book, over and over. When we smile when we eat. Where does that title come from? We smile when we eat. Talk about that a little.
That's a little play on word I went with, because not just for children, but it's with people in general. I always said that whenever somebody get a plate of food in front of their face or on their table, the first thing they're gonna do, they're gonna smile. I don't care what it is. The first things people always do. So I captured that little play on word and gravitated towards the children's book called We Smile When We Eat.
Okay, that's why I just want to say, I keep hearing, we smile when we eat. Where does that come from? Thank you so much for sharing that, Eric. One last question I want you to ask for us today is, oftentimes prison can be the wall that prohibits people from moving forward in life. If you don't mind, I know, again, it's up to your vulnerability level and your comfortability. Can you talk more about your time in prison and how it made you the man you are today?
Good question, LaKisha. I mean, prison, it ain't easy, because you will see some things that, in there, some people make it, some people don't make it out. So being kept, I'm just saying me, I grew and learned a personal and a strong relationship with Jesus. So that, it kept me in my right mind, but also just is in prison is not for everybody, so I'm thankful that everybody won't end up in that situation. But if you make it in that situation, you're able to make it out, having that right mindset, you can make it anywhere in the world. Just knowing that you don't want to go back in there. So it some people it molds you to be a better man in life, knowing that don't let the illusions of the world that tricked us as a younger individuals, where it might be for monetary or whatever it was that had you that allowed you to end up in there, just knowing that don't get tricked. We always say don't get tricked off the streets. So just don't be caught up with the illusions of the world.
And the reason I say it, I'm so inspired by your story, because, I worked multiple years at our local state attorney's office, and I remember working with quite a few of the state attorneys, and they would always be like, put them on probation. It was like a buyback program, because they'll be back. And then we see the recidivism rate being so high, and just to see you every single day. And I hear so many young men who have been to prison saying what they cannot do. I can't get a job, and I can't do this, and I can't. But I'm just so grateful to see your testimony.
Thank you.
It's not the same as a testimony of that I've seen from so many other people. And I know it had a lot to do with your own tenacity and your own self-will to not allow that to define you. And as you mentioned before, to reinvent yourself. And that's why we definitely had to have you on this podcast, because I know your story. And
Thank
your
you.
story is a true testament to all of mankind. No matter what kind of adversity you faced in life, you are able to, and I want to say that to our viewers today, no matter what adversity you face in life, you are able to overcome and to conquer it, because Eric sits here as a testimony to all of us. You know, I tell you again, when I sat doing my work, it was something that I heard every single day, that men, when they went to jail, especially our African-American men, that they just throw them away and there are no hope for them. And, you know, and they'll be back, and
Exactly.
that repeat offender, you know, and that's where, you know, you had so many terminologies that will come that they just automatically put onto our men, habitual offenders. And I thank God that you never became an habitual offender, you know, you never became a repeat. You changed your life and reinvented yourself. And now, as a result, an author of multiple books.
Thank you.
Film producer, acting, and you're doing great things. A married man,
Absolutely.
you know, a family man.
Absolutely.
So yes, you're great things. And so I just want to thank you again, Eric, for joining us on this episode of Love Speak, being vulnerable and sharing your testimony, sharing your story. And so I thank you for being a role model as well. You are truly a role model to all of young men. And that's why you have a voice, you have a message that speaks louder. Your message and your voice speaks louder than anything that this government or these local officials or anything, our prison systems, would try to speak over our young people. So thank you again for being a model. Thank you for being a model for all of mankind and all of young people, not just men, but women as well, because your story is an inspiration to all of us, because it's about overcoming.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Thank
Do you
you.
want any last words before I close us out?
Just thanking you and the whole cast of Love Speaks. Just thank y'all for the opportunity. I always tell people, preparation meets opportunity, it end up as a blessing.
Thank you again. And again, thank you for being a model for those who may be going through life's toughest situations. Again, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Love Speak. Again, I've been your host, LaKisha Carvil. Thank you again. Remember to subscribe, click the link below, and share this broadcast. Share Eric's story. Let it go viral. Let every single individual know that is going through life obstacles and life trials that they too can overcome. He'll definitely do it for you, and he'll do it for me. Thank you again. See you next time. Have a great one.